So we've got an action-packed and pretty heartfelt episode 6 of season 2 of The Bad Batch to break down today, so let's get straight into it. We begin the episode with the Bad Batch landing on what appears to be either a battle station or a trading station of some sort. And what is interesting here is that in this scene, and like many other scenes in this episode, it has really doubled down on what appears to be a matte painting, harkening back to the original techniques used during the original trilogy, in which a painted backdrop would be used due to the absence of large constructed sets or CGI, and it's really a sight to behold given how gorgeous these paintings look. The team land in one of the many hangars on the station, and we learn that the team are here to make a deal with a criminal organization known as the Vanguard Axis. Not much is known about this entirely new organization, but judging by the members of the criminal group, it seems to be the case that it's a droid-only organization. And these droids appear to be the same model of droid as L337, Lando Clarissian's custom piloting droid. And as we know, L3 had a bit of an independent streak about her, sentient to the point where she was able to make her own decisions, which is why she was also a completely custom droid made out of different droid models, a complete self-construction. But the ones that we see here, despite having some similar features, appear to be more heavily armored and standardized. So while it may not be an exact copy of L3, it might still hint to the fact that these guys are sentient as well, which would make this a first when talking about criminal organizations. Hunter, Wrecker, and Tech meet up with the Axis leader, while Omega and Echo stay behind. We then learn that what the droids are after are forged chain codes, which was something that was mentioned back in Season 1. As part of the Empire's many attempts to control and keep tabs on its own citizens, it introduced something called a chain code, which is sort of like an identity number. And so the droids are looking for these chain codes, likely to ensure that they can continue their illicit activities without being noticed by the Empire. During this interaction, Omega wanders off and ends up encountering two droids and a Wookiee. And the Wookiee here is none other than Gungi, who was last seen in the Clone Wars as a youngling. Omega helps the Wookiee escape, and if you pay close attention to the background, after beating the two droids, you'll notice that there's actually a third in the background, indicating that Gungi had already destroyed one of the droids well before Omega even arrived, likely with his bare hands, really a testament to the raw strength and combat skills of the Wookiee Jedi. As the two try and make an escape, it's pretty apparent that Gungi is looking for something in particular. He then looks through a crate full of weapons, and these blasters are actually the DC-15S carbines, the same ones commonly used by the clones. Echo arrives, and Gungi's reaction to the clone is pretty understandable given the way things ended for the Jedi. The Axis leader catches wind of the commotion going on down below, and it all ends up in a bit of a standoff between the Bad Batch and the Vanguard Axis. We then learn that the droids intend to sell Gungi off and already have a specific buyer in mind. And the buyer in this case is probably an Imperial Inquisitor, who were pretty active during this time period in hunting down the Jedi survivors. Gungi then manages to retrieve his lightsaber, the same one he created during the Clone Wars, with the hilt being made out of the Brylark tree, with the wood supposedly being as strong as metal. The team easily beat off the droids and make their escape, and on board we then learn that Gungi is trying to get back to Kashyyyk, his home world, and the team decide to take him there. As the team approaches the planet, we hear Echo mention that the scans indicate a lot of smoke and deforestation, a likely result of Imperial activity attempting to strip the planet of its resources. Gungi and the team land on the planet and begin to make their way through the forest. Omega is then surprised to learn that Gungi doesn't know much about his own planet, and what he knows is mostly from his dreams. And this can be attributed to the fact that Force-sensitive children were taken to the Jedi Order at a very young age, meaning that many of them had very little knowledge about where they come from and who their family was. As the team ventures further, they encounter some spiderwebs and some spider-looking aliens. These creatures here are the Kinrath. In the Knights of the Old Republic games, which is now Legends, and where they were first introduced, these creatures belong to a hive which is ruled by a matriarch. Additionally, some of the members of the species were also venomous, known as Viper Kinrath. In Legends, these creatures could only sense through heat and used a specific scent to identify each other, and were way more aggressive in the KOTOR games. So it seems like in canon they were changed slightly to be a little bit more friendly. And the introduction of the Kinrath into canon was something that was already considered as far back as the Clone Wars and part of the Bad Batch arc in Season 7, which was briefly featured in a few deleted scenes. The team approached the Wookiee village only to find it razed to the ground, and they soon come across a group of Trandoshans driving Separatist tanks, as well as holding a Wookiee hostage. We then learn that the Trandoshans are led by Commander Venomore, who was also first introduced in the Clone Wars deleted scene. But unlike the deleted scene in which Venomore was affiliated with the Separatists, he is now in line with the Empire, which might be due to him jumping ship once realizing that the Separatists were on the losing end. We also learn that the Trandoshans are on the lookout to destroy some carved stones created by the Wookiees, which likely has huge cultural significance for them. It also becomes clear that the Trandoshans have modified the Separatist tank to have a flamethrower instead of the standard cannon, adapting it to suit cutting down the dense vegetation of Kashyyyk. Now, not entirely sure as to who this specific Wookiee is. At first I thought it might be Tarful, but his armor patterns are completely different. Gunji gets really angry and the team easily defeat the Trandoshan party. The group is then greeted by more Wookiees riding these giant cat-like creatures, which was also first introduced in the deleted scene. The team is then taken to the Wookiee village and we are then introduced to Yana the village elder. The Trandoshans and the Empire eventually manage to track down the Wookiee village and the Wookiees consult the trees to devise an ambush. The ambush begins successfully, but it's not without casualties. The group plan to lure the Trandoshans into the Kinrath's web and Gunji manages to lure Venomore away. It all ends rather quickly the moment the Kinrath gets involved and Venomore and the rest of the Trandoshan party are easily defeated. And towards the end of the episode, we get a pretty significant character moment with Hunter where he laments that kids in this galaxy don't get to just be kids, and he then resolves to help Omega find a life far away from war. And as Tech translates Yana's words for Hunter, if you take a look at Tech's visor, you can actually see the translation in progress, with words in red and white on either side, something which has consistently happened every time Tech translated a language. Really just a cool little detail. So that's all for this breakdown. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte, and I have spoken.